Luke chapter 21 and verse 25. And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is your brother Hawayala. I want to give all glory and praises to our Heavenly Father Yahweh. In the name of our Lord and Savior Yahawashi, grace, mercy be abound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth that are waiting on the second coming of our Lord and Savior Yahawashi Hamashiach. As we've seen here, this is the red letter concerning the signs of the last days, reading from the 25th verse of the book of Luke, chapter 21, dealing with the signs and the distress of the nations with perplexity. And the reason why I'm going into this is from an article that I seen today concerning what's going on. This is from The Atlantic. And it says here, America is running out of everything. Okay. And I've been, seeing different articles concerning just the overall shortages, the containers that are stuck over there in the Pacific, the lack of basically the chip shortage. You have basically everything in every area is actually decreasing or is not able to be produced for one reason or another, or it's basically being delayed in regards to being shipped. So maybe it was produced, but it's not available because it's still stuck at sea. And then you have other factors that are entering in that are causing this shortage that's occurring here in Babylon and is happening also in other parts of the world. Now, this is all orchestrated. This particular event that is happening is orchestrated because if you look at just some of the events that have happened over the last year and a half, you had a lot of things that happened where, people lost jobs, businesses were lost, and then there became a shortage of maybe workers in a particular field area, which led to what? Inability to produce at the rate of what? Demand. And this leads to a crunch. And everybody understands that one of the basic things of business is supply and demand. And if you have a high demand for things but supply is low, that leads to a shortage. Okay? And that's how you begin to run out of things. Now, it says here that the global supply chain is slowly down at the very moment when Americans are demanding that it go into overdrive by Derek Thompson. Okay, now this is written October 7th, so I wanted to make sure to get this out the way because I believe that this you have to be subscribed in order to get unlimited access to the Atlantic. So I didn't want to jump away from this page and then they would be asking me to subscribe since I have full access to at least a free article for now. All right, so you see here it says about the author. Derek Thompson is a staff writer at the Atlantic where he writes about economics, technology, and media. He is the author of Hitmakers and the host of podcast Crazy Genius. Is it just me, or does it feel like America is running out of everything? I visited CVS last week to pick up some at-home COVID-19 tests. They'd been out for a week, an employee told me. So I asked about paper towels. We're out of those too, he said. Try Walgreens. I drove to a Walgreens that had paper towels, but when I asked a pharmacist to fill some very common prescriptions, he told me that the store had run out. Try the Target up the road, he suggested. Target's pharmacy had the meds, but its front area was alarmingly barren, like the canned food section of the grocery store 1 hour before a hurricane makes landfall. This is the economy now. 1 hour errands are now multiple hour odysseys. Next day deliveries are becoming next day after next deliveries. That car part you need. It'll take an extra week. Sorry. The book you were looking for. Come back in November. The baby crib you bought. Make it December. Eyeing a new home improvement job that requires several construction workers. Haha, pray for 2022. U.S. economy isn't yet experiencing a downturn akin to the 1970s period of stagflation. This is something different and quite strange. Americans are settling into a new phase of pandemic economy, in which GDP is growing, but we're also suffering from a dearth of shocking array of things: test kits, car parts, semiconductors, ships, shipping containers, workers. This is the everything shortage. The everything shortage is not the result of one big bottleneck in, say, Vietnamese factories or the American trucking industry. We are running low on supplies of all kinds due to veritable hydra of bottlenecks. Okay, and then we'll keep going down. It says here that the pandemic has snarled global supply chains in several ways. Pandemic checks sent hundreds of billions of dollars to cabin fevered Americans during a follow period in the service sector. A lot of that cash has flowed to hard goods, especially home goods such as furniture and home improvement materials. Many of these materials have to be imported from from East Asia. But that region is dealing with the Delta variant, which has been considerably more deadly than previous iterations of the V. Delta has caused several shutdowns at semiconductor factories across Asia, just as demand for cars and electronics has started to pick up. A result, these stops, as a result, these stops, along with the supply chain, are slowly down at the very moment when Americans are demanding that they work in overdrive. Okay, so now one of the things that we also have to realize too is that when you're looking at the things that are basically lacking, you're also going to people are going to also be looking to take, eventually other people's goods because they cannot get access to them. All right, so which we'll definitely read about. So we have to understand that as these type of things happen and people start experiencing lack, there's things that they don't have access to because either they're not available, like whether it's a part for a machine, a car, that's going to lead to other issues, right? That could lead to a rising amount of theft. Now, here in Houston, one of the things that's been happening over the last year has been the rise in catalytic converter thefts. Okay, and that's like a big deal in a lot of cities around the country. So when you start looking into things that are not longer being able to be manufactured, you have what's happening is because of so many thefts and there's a lack in the back order on a lot of those catalytic converters that need to be replaced, and it's costing more each time somebody has it stolen from off their vehicle and then it needs to be replaced. There's a huge back order, so now you're having a problem just with that type of part, how much more other parts that are out there. And I'm even thinking about some of the things that I would want to get in regards to, uh, parts, even for my vehicle, and even brothers out there should even think about the same thing. If there's a certain part that you probably need to basically fix your vehicle, or maybe would need it down the road, this would be the time to probably even look into stocking it just in case you need to basically, put it on there. So we're at a time when a lot of things that people think is going to be available are not going to be available like they once were. All right. And that's going to include, different, food items as well. All right. So as we go on, it says the most dramatic expression of this snarl is the purgatory of loaded cargo containers stacked on ships, bobbling off the coast of Los Angeles and Long Beach. Just as a normal traffic jam consists of too many drivers trying to use too few lanes, the traffic jam at California ports have been exacerbated by extravagant consumer demand, slamming into a shortage of truckers, and port workers because ships can't be unloaded. Not enough empty containers are in transit to carry all the stuff that consumers are trying to buy. So the world is getting a lesson in economics 101. High demand plus limited supply equals prices spiraling to the moon. Before the pandemic, reserving a container that holds roughly 35,000 books cost 2,500. Now it costs 25,000. Okay, and if you talk to anybody that had dealt with those shipping containers, that dealt with international business, that is one of the things that can basically put you out of business real quick. if you are shipping an item, certain types of items that are less than less than what it costs to ship, and then vice versa happens. So you got to think about it for a second. Like, some of these people are selling certain products and goods, and they're looking for a certain amount of profit. If it's now costing you an additional $20,000, 5,000, I mean, it's like a lot of money. So you're talking about $22,500 extra to basically get a container and ship your goods. You're not doing business, because at that point you'd rather just sit back and wait for things to clear up before you would buy that container. And then why would you take that loss as a business on a regular basis to basically do business, when at that point you might as well fold up? So this right here in of itself can cause many businesses to fold. And this is all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan to basically, mess up the global economy. Okay, now can they switch this? Yes, they can. They can do certain things and clear things up and put out another stimulus package and have everybody have a good, so-called winter, and everybody waits to the spring and everything gets back to quote unquote normal. All right, which whatever normal is, all right, to the people, that they're basically conditioning the people into what a new normal. Says the container situation is even weirder than it looks, with demand surging in the United States. Shipping a parcel from Shanghai to Los Angeles is currently 6 times more expensive than shipping one from Los Angeles to Shanghai. Wow. So that messes up a lot of things, because you got a lot of people that buy stuff from China and then they sell it on their, website. You got a lot of people that buy certain things in bulk, and then they basically sell it here at a higher price, and then they make a good amount of profit. Now, if the shipping costs to get something from China costs so much that the profit is either, is pretty much erased, and it becomes basically you are paying more than you're getting back from the business, then you got to shut down your business too. So it says here, J.P. Morgan's Michael Sambasles wrote that this has created strong incentives for container owners to ship containers to China, even if they are mostly empty, to expedite the packing and shipping of freights in Shanghai to travel east. But when containers leave Los Angeles and Long Beach empty, American-made goods that were supposed to be sent across the Pacific Ocean end up sitting around in rail cars parked at West Coast ports, since the packed rail cars can't unload their goods. They can't go back and collect more stuff from filled warehouses in the American interior. And what about the truckers who are needed to drive materials between warehouses, ports, stores, and houses? They're dealing with a multi-dimensional shortage too. Supply chain woes have backed up orders for parts, such as resin for roof caps and vinyls for seats. But there's also a crucial lack of people to actually drive the rigs. Now, this is what they've been talking about. I believe even in the United Kingdom, they're talking about a trucker shortage as well to get these things, back up and running and rolling. It says the Minnesota Trucking Association estimates that the country has a shortage of about 60,000 drivers due to a long-time recruitment issue, early retirement, and CV canceled driving school classes. In short, supply chains depend on containers, ports, railroads, warehouses, and trucks. Every stage of this international assembly line is breaking down in its own unique way. When the global supply chain works, it's like a beautifully invisible system of dominoes clicking forward. Today's omnishambles is a reminder that dominoes can fall backward too. And then there's the labor market. In the United States, job openings have hit record highs in restaurants, hotels, and other leisure hospitality sectors. But companies are struggling to fill these roles, and to keep factories and some other businesses operating at a full capacity when the Delta infections rolled through. So they're saying that there's all these openings, and going around, one of the places you see openings a lot at is going to be definitely the fast food. So fast food sector, I think everybody can agree that when you go, that you see the openings there. But remember, they've had a large amount of people laid off. In fact, I think even 1 week, I think a couple of weeks ago, it was like 300 something people that filed, 300 something thousand people that had filed for new unemployment claims. So if you have all these people that have been let go due to the shutdown, and you're saying that there's so many jobs opening that people are not taking them, you got to be lying. And at some point, you got to be lying, because one, crime is going up, murder and armed robberies has gone up. The biggest jump in homicides from year to year is 30%, and it happened between 2020 and 2021. So how is it that y'all had the largest jump in murders in the history of the United States in 1 year, but you're saying all these jobs are available? Because if all these jobs are available, people will be working. When the economy is good, everybody knows that the crime rate drops. This is proven. You can see when everybody's working, when men are working, and there's less people out there committing crime, feeling desperate, and being frustrated. And frustration also leads to a lot of murders as well, because of people's franticness, right? What they're facing, the perplexity. In fact, let's get that real quick. Okay, that's why men's heart failing them for fear. When people are in a state of perplexity, things get real rough. Now it says here, aporia. This is Strong's G640, the state of one who is in perplexity. And it says the state of a quandary, Strong's definition. Now, if we go to the root word, it's going to say oporeo. It says to be without resources, to be in straits. Okay, to be without resources. To be in straits, meaning to be in a position of difficulty. To be left wanting. To be left wanting means to be lacking. To be lacking in something. To be embarrassed. People are embarrassed. They're ashamed. Okay, people start begging, asking family, asking friends when they probably never did that before for things. They're in a state of embarrassment. And some people, they have too much pride to ask for help from people around them. So they go and they start doing scams. They start basically, doing things like armed robberies. They start stealing, right? Why do you think all those NBA players, those ex-NBA players, I think it was about 18 of them, they were doing fraud on the NBA retirement fund, their insurance and all that stuff. They're that they get through the NBA as basically NBA, retirees, because the lack of stuff down here. Some of those guys might have had businesses that were doing good before the shutdown, and then that money started going down, and then they probably had to shut down the business. Maybe the PPP didn't hit right for them, or they didn't get qualified. Now you still got bills. You got $1 million home. You got property taxes. You got car notes. Your kids in private school. Your wife don't want you to pull out your kids out of the private school that you was paying, $10, $15, $30,000 a year for. You want to push that G-Wagon. You still got to entertain your family and take them to trips like you've been doing every year, because you don't want the lifestyle to go down. And now, boom, now all of a sudden, that temptation comes in to go and do some scamming. And this is what's happening with a lot of people. Right? To be in doubt, not to know which way to turn. A lot of people are going to be in confusion of what to do. And with this whole mandate that's going on, they're basically pushing people into this particular position. All right? Perplexity. It says to be at a loss with oneself, be in doubt. not to know how to decide or what to do, to be perplexed. Look at that. Strong's definition: to have no way out. That is, be at a loss mentally. To be at no way out, man. Like, come on. When you got no way out, desperation kicks in. And when human beings get desperate, we know exactly what goes down, man. That's the worst state of a human being, is when they're lacking, they're hungry, they're frustrated, they're angry, they feel like nothing's going right, they're going their way, they're impatient, and then they begin to do things that they wouldn't normally do. So going down, it says, you see these problems from a variety of angles. From workers' perspective, unemployment insurance and several rounds of stimulus have allowed laid off workers to be picky about jobs instead of desperately lugging for the first paycheck available. That doesn't sound like such a bad thing, but from many employers' perspective, government programs have exacerbated a terrible labor shortage. Staffing up a business has become difficult. The result from consumers' perspective is more of the same everything shortage. Now, think about this. They're having a shortage of laborers out there in the market to work at these different jobs. Yet the POTUS just basically is trying to force a mandate and basically legislation that is already written through OSHA that will find employers that have over 100 employees, tens of thousands and probably hundreds of thousands of dollars for each offense. But yet you have a shortage. So why would you go out of your way? Because again, they're trying to orchestrate an economic collapse. Now, is it possible that they could let things boil over and switch things up a little bit? It's possible that they might continue to draw out their stage, but the way it's looking, they're doing a lot of things that makes no sense. And when it makes no sense, that's because there's a deliberate plan to destroy the economy, to cause confusion among the people, to cause chaos, and out of chaos, they believe comes order. All right? So, going on. The result from consumers' perspective is more of the same, everything shortage, since finding, hiring, and training hundreds of thousands of people in new roles at the same time is hard during a pandemic. We should all expect a bit of slowness across the service sector for a while, a bit more time for that cappuccino, a bit longer of a wait for that appetizer, a bit of confusion. We just talked about that at the convenience store when you ask where the nail polish remover is, and the new employee who had to zoom in for her training program needs a moment to remember the aisle numbers. Finally, as if those slowdowns weren't enough, there's the mail. As of this month, the United States Postal Service is reducing its use of air transportation to save money. The United States Postal Service estimates that deliveries outside your local area will likely be delayed by 1 or 2 days. But as we've seen, relying on rail and truck means leaning on systems that are dealing with their own mess. This has not yet added up to a recession, but it portends a massively frustrating holiday shopping period, especially for households with the habit of buying presents at the last minute. I've been doing this for 43 years and never seen it this bad. Isaac Lorian, the founder and CEO of the toy maker MGA Entertainment, told Bloomberg, everything that can go wrong is going wrong at the same time. It's not a coincidence. This is what people don't understand. A lot of these Babylonians have no idea that this is going on. They're seeing certain shortages at the store, but they just think they just didn't get the store on time. They're not realizing that this is going on. Most of them don't realize this is going on at all. They're being distracted by shows on TV, on Netflix, all right, on Hulu. They're being distracted by the baseball season, NFL, NBA season about to kick off, Drake album drop, whatever celebrity gossip is out there. All right, listening to the mainstream media network telling them that they need to, obey, right? All these things people are not even thinking about. They're just completely in a state of slumber. Okay? Says USPS has already announced price hikes for the winter holidays. To avoid paying those surcharges and suffering the Yuletide wrath of disappointed children, the recommended course of action is clear. If you want it by December 25th, start placing those orders soon. Everyone complains when stores start playing carols and advertising holiday sales in October. You notice that they've been doing that every year. It seems like they've been they've been always like a little bit earlier to each holiday season, just like it was even with the so-called Halloween. They was already putting that candy out and all the mask and all them costumes out like in mid-September. By the time the next couple of weeks rolls in, you're going to start seeing Thanksgiving stuff. Don't be surprised by pretty much early first week of November, you're going to start seeing so-called Christmas stuff, because all these companies want to get the early jump on the minds of these Babylonians to celebrate their stuff so they can start spending money now while they still have time, while they still have supplies, while they can still make a business turn around or get back into the swing of things, right? But we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. A lot of stuff is coming down the pipe. So it says here, this year, Christmas creep is your best shopping strategy. Either that or prepare the kids to celebrate Christmas morning sometime in January. You can celebrate it like in, another month, like the Orthodox Christians do out there in freaking, Russia. Look it up. How will the everything shortage be resolved? One possibility is that Americans adopt a sustainable, aesthetic, and homespun lifestyle that reduces our dependency on goods that activate the global supply chain. If you can seriously envision such a world, I envy your gift of imagination, meaning it ain't gonna happen. The best solution to the everything shortage is to have a policy to make more of just about everything. Containers, which carry more than 90% of the world's traded goods, are overwhelmingly manufactured in China. Why doesn't America make more? Car parts, semiconductors, and home goods have been offshored, making the United States solely reliant on overseas factories. Why can't America make more? At home, the test, which could illuminate household infections and prevent community spread, were only just authorized by the FDA almost 2 years into this pandemic. Why hasn't America made more? For decades, many U.S. companies moved factories overseas, taking advantage of cheap labor and cheaper materials across the oceans. In normal times, America benefits from global trade, and the price of offshoring is borne by the unlucky few in the deindustrialized regions. Right? For example, a deindustrialized region is like what's called the Rust Belt. In fact, the other day I was watching a documentary, or it's like a short documentary piece on Gary, Indiana. All right. And Gary, Indiana was part of what that whole Rust Belt in the Midwest was, and had, I believe it had, a steel factory. They made steel over there, just like you had like over there in Pittsburgh. You had stuff in Ohio. You have what was known as the Rust Belt. Rust Belt is dealing with those metals, right? And basically, those regions were deindustrialized and brought down very low economically, and they're one among the poorest and most income inequality regions in the country, with losing populations, people moving from those areas for the last 3 to 4 decades because of this. So this is what the beloved America is facing, in part due to their own leadership and because of the greed of their elites that want to bring this type of inequality to force the masses into their new world order. But the pandemic and the supply chain breakdowns are a reminder that the decline of manufacturing can be felt more broadly during a crisis when we run out of, well, damn near everything. That's why Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan includes billions of dollars to reshore manufacturing, invest in basic research, and beef up domestic supply chains. Wait, but if he wants to have people working at these places, he's going to say you got to get what? Poked. Right? You got to get poked. Is that what he's going to be pushing? Come on. It's a lot of stuff that's being said that is gonna be done, but a lot of these are just lies to the public to hold them off from the surprise that is to come. Our dearth of manufactured parts and containers is part of a broader crisis of manufactured scarcity in America. A protectionist and anti growth instinct runs through government, yielding not only a flat footed CDC and a tardy FDA, but also sharp restrictions on housing construction, immigration, and licensing of new professionals and tradespeople. Focusing on the redistribution of income and goods is natural for today's progressives, who tend to emphasize the virtue of equality. One lesson of the everything shortage is you cannot redistribute what isn't created in the first place. The best equality agenda begins with the abundance agenda. Today's crisis is an opportunity to emphasize a new philosophy of what the New York Times, Ezra Klein, calls supply side progressivism, which sees value in this across the board abundance. This approach might start by prioritizing policies that reduce the cost of housing and healthcare and reshoring the production of materials that we deemed essential to national security during a pandemic or an unrelated supply chain calamity. Decades from now, we might look at the legacy of the pandemic and see that it took a global crisis of choke points to teach us that real progress begins by removing the choke points at home. This is called wishful thinking. This dude's talking about decades from now. These people, their inward thought is that the houses will continue forever from generation to generation. Decades from now. That's the type of talk they're having. And see, the thing about it, the people that write these articles, some of these people really believe that the politicians over there on Capitol Hill have their best interests at heart. And many of our people believe the same thing. Okay? They don't believe, like, why would they do that? I've heard all the time, like, you're like, why would they want to do that? That makes no sense. No, it makes sense if you're trying to create a global new world order and you realize that everybody, all the other nations, rely on the strong economy of the United States. And that if you cripple it, the economy, that everything else also cripples it too. See, the person was alluding to dominoes. But if you crash the American economy, there's a domino effect that ripples globally. All right. And that's what can usher more nations into the New World Order. All right. So let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 15. Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. Fear not the imagination against thee. Let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. Yeah, because when you tell people like this is what's going to happen, they say, oh, you've been saying the economy is going to collapse. You've been saying that they're going to release the mark of the beast. You don't know what you're talking about. You keep on saying that they're going to do this and that. You said there's going to be martial law. I haven't seen no martial law. You said that there was going to be food shortages. I have not seen no food shortages. This is stuff that they've been saying to us of what we've been speaking for years that was going to come to pass. You keep saying that they're going to take away the dollar, they're going to get rid of fiat currency, they're going to go digital. You don't know what you're talking about. Well, they're working on it right now. That's why the central bank digital currencies is out. That's why those things are being implemented already. Oh, you said that Bill Gates wants to, get everybody jabbed because it's going to be part of population control. You said it was on TED Talks. Well, I think you misinterpreted that. Well, guess what? It appears that the jabs that have been implemented are showing to have adverse reactions, and they're leading to early deaths. Yes, and more of that will come. In fact, more information is coming on the horizon of what they're planning next, okay, which Lord willing, we'll be able to get into in another time. So this is what is happening. That's why sometimes you gotta have a sense of humor in this. That's why you kind of, you gotta kind of like, think like they think and laugh at it, right? That's the reason why I'm gonna read it again. Verse 3: Fear not the imaginations against thee, let not the incredulity, meaning their disbelief of the people that we're dealing with, of them trouble thee, that speak against thee. For all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the earth, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. For wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. Therefore, saith the Lord, I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness, which they profanely commit, neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise themselves. Behold, the innocent and righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. And me and one of the brothers was reading that earlier in the book of Revelation, just as an example of this stuff is in there. So before the Most High brings that destruction, he's got to hear the prayers of the saints, them complaining to him. All right. And then after that time, he brings some of these things upon the earth. Some of it is he's going to allow, remember the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men now. So the stuff that Esau's doing, it's all part of the plan in the grand scheme of things for the Most High. And then there's going to be other things that the Esau can't do, that the elites can't do, that the Most High is going to bring upon the earth. All right. And that's really what's going to shake up everybody. All right. Even more, especially those that are quote unquote ruling right now. Verse 9, and therefore saith the Lord, I will surely avenge them and receive unto me all the innocent blood from among them. Behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt. Okay, what's the land of Egypt? The house of bondage. All right. Spiritually, Sodom and Egypt is what Babylon the Great will be known as. Okay. So this is the place of great deliverance as written in the prophecies. Verse 11, and I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and the punishment that God shall bring upon it. They that till the ground shall mourn, for their seeds shall fail through the blasting and hail, and with a fearful constellation. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And man shall desire to go into the city, and shall not be able. Because people are going to be trying to go and get things, all right? They're going to be trying to go to places where other abundance is at. Somebody might have a friend, a sibling, all right, that lives in another state. That's like, look, come over here where I'm at. I got extra water. I got extra food. I live in a gated community, or I live on my own property. And people are going to try and go there, and they're not going to be able to. That person that has his own property in some area, he might get ran out of that area by a militia group or by some people that are scavengers coming through looking for stuff. And then he might have to run and see if he can go somewhere else, but he ain't going to be able to because the cities is going to be locked down. Verse 18, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods. Right? Remember, there's a shortage of everything. Spoil their goods. Why would they take their goods? Because there's a lack of it. People are going to be taking stuff that they don't possess or that they don't have in abundance that they may need more of. Clothes, food, water, firearms, bullets, whatever it is, could be freaking computers, cell phones, tablets, headphones, portable radios, ATVs, Jeeps, cars, whatever. You don't know like what somebody's going to be lacking in them days. Somebody might have an abundance of something, but they missing other things. All right. And then that's going to be the reason why they want to invade your house. That's going to be the reason why they're going to want to take you out. So that's why we need a hedge. We need a hedge. See, what we're doing, there's something in business called having a hedge. A hedge. A hedge is a protection against the risk that you are taking. There's certain risks, even as believers, that we take in our walk that we can only be protected from through a hedge that the Most High sets about us. Because guess what? As a believer, you can't have everything covered. You don't got your own militia army, okay? You don't got your own tower where you can guard yourself. You might not be in a position to basically stack up a whole bunch of food and water and supplies. So what we do is we make the Lord our hedge. Like a business person will make a hedge against their own future losses. Or like a gambler might have a gamble that he made, a parlay, and he might hedge against the loss just so he can make out right overall. So hedge implies protection against risk. All right? So that's the mindset that we have to be under. All right? And also, spoil their goods because of what? The lack of bread and for great tribulation. All right? So people are going to you got to think about it. Some people are going to be taking things either to barter or sell so they can get access to other things. People might say, look, I got water filters. You need clean water. I got a water filter. Give me a loaf of bread for this. And the thing about it is, because of the way things will be in disarray, many of those transactions are going to lead to death. Somebody that thinks you can barter in a time of chaos with no law enforcement, with no court, with no nothing, you're dealing in a Mad Max situation. You're at the mercy of the person that's in front of you at that point. So we have to think about what is going on, all right, and what is going to be very valuable and important. Because right now, we're just seeing the beginning stages of basically perplexity, a lack of goods, a lack of food, and a lack of basically overall security and peace of mind. All right. So we want to be in the mindset that the scripture says that we will stand firm, that we will not be fearful. And these things we have to meditate upon so that way when they come, we are not so shaken, and you don't get shaken to the point where you fall out the faith or where you start doing things and operating in a carnal perspective, in which takes you away from basically the anchoring that is found in faith in Yahawashi HaMashiach. So hopefully this is edifying. And again, I want to give all glory and praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahawashi. Grace and mercy be bound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom.